What if I told you that the same company that helped you search for cat videos, drive to the grocery store, and email your boss is now diving headfirst into crypto? And not just dabbling, I'm talking about custom blockchains, stablecoins, billion-dollar investments, and even partnerships with Bitcoin miners. Sounds wild, right? But it's real, and it's happening faster than you think. This is the story of Google and crypto, the secret strategies, shelved experiments, and future bets that could change how we use money, data, and even the internet itself. And if you thought Google was just about ads and search bars, think again. Because when the most powerful tech company on Earth starts playing with decentralized technology, you'd better believe the stakes are high. Let's break down how Google is quietly building a foundation that could reshape finance as we know it. Before we talk crypto, let's rewind. Because to understand Google's ambitions in finance, you have to understand its roots. The year is 1996. Larry Page and Sergey Brin are PhD students at Stanford University, working on a research project that would eventually become the foundation of Google. Their mission? Organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Sounds noble, but like most great tech companies, it started in a garage. In 1998, with a $100,000 check from Sun Microsystems co-founder Andy Bechtolsheim, Google was born. At the time, Yahoo was the king of search, and most people thought the internet was just a fad. But Larry and Sergey had a secret weapon, a better algorithm. PageRank, a system that ranked websites based on their relevance and the number of links pointing to them, gave Google an edge. Search results were faster, cleaner, and way more accurate. Within a few years, the company exploded. Google went public in 2004, raised $1.7 billion, and became a household name. But here's the twist. It wasn't search that made Google a trillion-dollar company. It was ads. More specifically, Google Ads, the ability to show you relevant ads based on what you were searching for. That engine would go on to generate more than 80% of Google's revenue, turning the company into an unstoppable force.
Do you know your ABCs? There's a major shakeup at Google, and now the company is operating under a new parent company called Alphabet.
Today, Google, now under the parent company Alphabet, is a global titan. It dominates 90% of the search engine market. It has over 3 billion Android users, more than 1.8 billion Gmail accounts, and YouTube reaches over 2.5 billion monthly users. Financially, Alphabet generated $324 billion in revenue in 2023 alone, with the vast majority coming from advertising. That's more than the GDP of entire countries. So why would a company this powerful, this entrenched in traditional tech, mess around with crypto? Because even for giants like Google, the internet is changing, and crypto, or more broadly, blockchain, might be the next frontier. Just like the early 2000s were about web pages and search, and the 2000s were about mobile and social media, the 2000s are shaping up to be about decentralization, digital ownership, and programmable money. And Google doesn't want to get left behind. Believe it or not, Google almost launched its own digital currency. And we're not talking about some experimental token. We're talking about an actual peer-to-peer payment system backed by Google. It was called Google Bucks. Internally, the idea floated around in the early 2000s, well before Bitcoin and Ethereum hit mainstream attention. The concept was simple. Allow users to send money to each other using Gmail, similar to how Venmo works today. It would be fast, easy, and integrated into Google's massive ecosystem of services. But there was a catch. Even back then, Google's legal team realized that launching a currency, especially one outside traditional banking rails, would raise red flags. Concerns over money laundering, fraud, and regulatory oversight started piling up. Ultimately, the project was shelved. But here's the important part. Google Bucks never really died. It just morphed into other products. First came Google Wallet, which let users store debit and credit cards on their phones. Then Android Pay, which eventually evolved into the current Google Pay. All of these were steps toward owning the rails of digital payments. Still, the idea of a native Google currency, something truly peer-to-peer, decentralized, or blockchain-based, stayed on ice for a while, until things started heating up again in 2021. Between September 2021 and June 2022, something interesting happened inside Google. While the rest of the world was obsessing over NFTs and meme coins, Alphabet started quietly pouring money into Web3 infrastructure. According to public filings and reports, Google invested $1.5 billion into blockchain startups. But these weren't just random bets, these were strategic moves. They invested in Dapper Labs, the company behind NBA Top Shot, and the Flow blockchain, pioneers in consumer-facing Web3 applications. Dapper had figured out how to make NFTs approachable, usable, and fun. Then there was Fireblocks, a digital asset custody platform used by banks, hedge funds, and exchanges to securely store and transfer crypto assets. This wasn't about memes, this was about infrastructure. Another investment was Voltage, a company building tools for the Bitcoin Lightning Network, designed to make BTC transactions faster and cheaper. While most corporations stayed away from Bitcoin's Layer 2, Google leaned in. Why does this matter? Because these aren't passive investments. They signal that Google sees long-term potential in how crypto rails work, not just the hype. It's the same pattern we saw with Android. Back in the early 2000s, Google saw that mobile would shape the future, so they acquired Android before it was even finished. And now, Android runs on 70% of smartphones globally. This investment spree was Google's way of doing the same thing for crypto. Build the pipes now, monetize later. Fast forward to September 2025, and Google's crypto ambitions took a major leap. They announced a partnership with Coinbase, one of the most well-known crypto exchanges in the US, to integrate stablecoin payments into Google's new AI-powered payment framework. What does that mean? Google had been working on a next-gen checkout experience, powered by AI, voice input, and predictive analytics. Think of it like a futuristic version of Apple Pay, but one that could suggest purchases, optimize your subscriptions, and even scan your voice tone to detect fraud. But here's the twist. This new framework wasn't just built for fiat. It supported stablecoins, digital assets like USDC and UTST, which are pegged to the US dollar. These coins offer the speed and programmability of crypto, without the price volatility of something like Bitcoin. And guess who helped build this part? Coinbase. With this move, Google allowed select merchants in emerging markets, including Latin America, Southeast Asia, and parts of Africa, to accept stablecoins for digital purchases, using nothing but a Gmail-linked wallet and a fingerprint. Why does this matter? Because suddenly payments became borderless. People without credit cards, without traditional banks, could now transact using just a smartphone and stablecoins, all thanks to Google's back-end infrastructure. This isn't just a feature, it's a blueprint for the future of payments, one where AI handles the UX, crypto handles the settlement, and Google sits quietly in the middle taking a cut. Just 1 month later, in October 2025, Google made headlines again, this time in the Bitcoin mining space. They helped secure a $3 billion 10-year hosting deal with Cipher Mining, one of the largest publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies in the US. Now here's the surprising part. This wasn't just about servers. Cipher needed AI capabilities for predictive maintenance, power optimization, and on-chain analytics. In return, they agreed to use Google Cloud as their exclusive infrastructure provider. Think about that. Bitcoin, the original anti-establishment crypto, now runs on Google servers. This deal gave Google something it's always craved: on-chain data. With millions of Bitcoin transactions being routed through Cipher's nodes, Google Cloud gained visibility into patterns, wallet activity, and miner economics. But more than that, it planted Google firmly in the heart of Bitcoin's infrastructure, not as a trader, not as a wallet, but as the quiet tech layer underneath it all. In the past, Bitcoin mining was dominated by small farms or rogue operators, but now the game has changed. The big players want in. And then came March 2025. Google announced something no one expected: their own blockchain. It's called GCUL, short for Google Cloud Universal Ledger. And it's not a meme coin or a public chain like Ethereum. It's a private, institutional-grade blockchain designed for banks. The pitch? A platform where financial institutions can settle wholesale payments, tokenize real-world assets, create Python-based smart contracts, and operate in private test environments. In short, it's Ethereum for banks, but with Google's security, uptime, and integration power. Right now, GCUL is being tested in a private testnet with major banks and fintech partners, and wider trials are planned for late 2025. What makes GCUL special is its developer-friendly tools. Most blockchains require learning new languages like Solidity or Rust. GCUL runs on Python, one of the most popular programming languages in the world. This opens the door for millions of developers, from hedge funds to retail fintechs, to start building smart contracts without needing crypto expertise. And with Google Cloud offering APIs, storage, AI plugins, and even regulatory modules, GCUL isn't just a chain. It's a crypto operating system for finance. After all of this, the shelved Google Bucks project, the $1.5 billion in investments, the stablecoin integration, the Bitcoin mining deal, and now their own blockchain, you might be wondering, what is Google's endgame in crypto? They're not launching a public token. They're not trying to compete with Ethereum or Solana. They're not an exchange. They're not even a wallet provider. So what are they? The answer lies in infrastructure and control. Google doesn't need to own the coins to dominate the game. They're building the backend, the cloud servers, the developer tools, the AI integrations, the security standards, the APIs that fintechs and banks will rely on to plug into the blockchain world. In other words, they're laying the tracks for the next financial rail, one that's programmable, borderless, and AI enhanced. But they're making sure everyone rides on their trains. Just like they didn't build most of the websites, but they indexed them. Just like they didn't make most Android apps, but they hosted the OS. Just like they don't sell every product, but they own the ad network that gets it in front of you. With crypto, they're doing the same thing. They're not building the money, they're building the machine that moves it. Of course, this raises real questions. Is it safe to let one company, especially one as dominant as Google, sit at the intersection of AI, blockchain, and financial infrastructure? Crypto was built on ideals of decentralization, permissionless systems, and individual control. But now we're entering a world where one company could be routing transactions, hosting smart contracts, verifying digital identities, and collecting the metadata of millions of payments, all while training its AI on the patterns of global commerce. That's a level of visibility that even central banks don't have. And while Google hasn't done anything malicious with that power yet, the concern is what happens when incentives shift or when governments start making requests. Does decentralization still matter when 80% of developers host on one blockchain run by Google Cloud? Will regulators eventually treat Google like a financial institution? And will everyday users even care as long as the payments are fast, cheap, and built into Gmail? Here's the big takeaway. While most of us were watching crypto through the lens of charts, influencers, and token hype, Google was doing something else entirely. So the next time someone tells you big tech missed the crypto wave, just point to Google and remind them, the most powerful players are often the quietest ones. If you enjoyed this breakdown of how Google is quietly building its crypto empire, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We've got more deep dives coming your way, from trillion-dollar tech giants to underground fintech empires. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.